The sun had barely begun to rise over Silver Creek when Jack Red Lawson rode hard into the canyon trail. His horse, a sturdy brown mare named Dusty, snorted nervously, sensing danger in the dry, silent morning air. Jack was no stranger to danger. He had spent years as a cowboy drifting from one town to another, earning his reputation as a quick hand with a six-shooter. But on this day, something felt different. The quiet air seemed heavier, and the wind carried an unusual tension that made the hair on his arm stand on end. He rounded a bend, and suddenly, from behind jagged rocks, the outlaw gang ambushed him. 6 men, faces covered with scarves, guns raised, shouted for him to surrender. Jack's heart pounded, but surrender had never been in his nature. He drew his revolver, his hand steady despite the fear rising in his chest. Shots rang out, echoing off the canyon walls. Dusty reared, throwing Jack to the ground. Pain shot through his side as he realized he had been hit. Blood soaked through his shirt and the world around him began to blur. The gang laughed, thinking the fight was over, but Jack tried to rise, grimacing. He wanted to fight back, to prove that even wounded he was not to be underestimated, but his strength was fading fast. His vision grew hazy and the sounds of the gunfire became distant echoes. One of the men stepped forward, confident that the fight was finished. Jack tried to lift his revolver, but his hands shook uncontrollably. The world tilted, and then everything went dark. Somewhere between consciousness and the edge of life, Jack felt a cool hand on his shoulder. He opened his eyes slowly, squinting against the harsh sunlight. A woman was kneeling beside him, her long hair tied back and her eyes filled with a mix of concern and determination. She looked ordinary at first glance, but there was something in her presence that made Jack feel both safe and uneasy. "Drink this," she said, holding out a small glass filled with a golden liquid. "It will help you. Trust me." Jack wanted to speak, to ask who she was, but his throat was dry and his energy barely allowed him to nod. With trembling hands, he lifted the glass and drank. The liquid was warm and slightly sweet, with a taste he could not identify. Almost immediately, he felt a tingling warmth spreading through his body. The pain in his side dulled slightly, and his breathing became easier. The woman introduced herself as Evelyn Shaw, a traveling healer who wandered the West, helping those in need. She worked with herbs, remedies, and what she called her special tonics, which had an uncanny way of restoring strength faster than usual. Jack, a man who trusted few and questioned everything, wanted to doubt her. But as he tried to sit up, he found his muscles responding more quickly than they should have after such a severe wound. For the next few days, Evelyn tended to Jack carefully. She washed his wound, applied poultices, and insisted he continue drinking her tonic. Jack was stubborn, refusing to fully obey her instructions at first, but he could not deny the progress he was making. The pain, which should have left him bedridden for weeks, eased within days. His wounds began to close and heal, faster than any cowboy doctor could explain. As Jack regained his strength, he began to notice subtle changes. His reflexes were sharper. He could sense movements before they happened. Shadows that would have gone unnoticed before now seemed to reveal hidden dangers. It was as if his senses had been heightened in ways that felt both natural and extraordinary. When he swung his arm to pick up his revolver, he did so with precision and confidence that startled even him. Word began to spread quietly through the town that Jack had survived what should have been a deadly encounter. Whispers followed him wherever he went. "He's back, but he's different." People noticed the way he moved, the calm confidence in his eyes and the almost supernatural ability to sense trouble before it arrived. Jack paid little attention to the gossip. He was focused on one thing: reclaiming his place in the West, a place he had left behind but never forgotten. Evelyn watched him with a mix of pride and caution. She knew the tonic had given him more than healing. It had awakened something within him, something powerful and dangerous. "Power," she told him one evening as the sun dipped behind the canyon cliffs, "is only as good as the choices you make. Remember that." Jack nodded, but he did not fully understand the warning. His mind was already planning, already thinking of the outlaws who had ambushed him and the respect he had lost among the men in Silver Creek. Despite the mystery surrounding his recovery, Jack found comfort in small familiar routines. He brushed Dusty's coat each morning, checked his revolvers carefully, and walked the dusty streets of the town, observing everything. He noticed the fear in some eyes, the curiosity in others, and the cautious respect in those who once doubted him. Jack realized that his return was not just about survival. It was about reputation, about proving that he was untouchable. One afternoon, while sitting outside the small saloon with a cup of coffee, Jack overheard two men speaking quietly. They spoke of the ambush, of how the gang had left him for dead and how no one expected him to survive. "But they say he's back," one whispered, "and stronger than before. Some even say he's different." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Different. That was the word he had been feeling himself. The word that described the strange clarity, the heightened instincts, the unusual strength that had returned to him. The days passed, and Jack's confidence grew alongside his abilities. He practiced his shooting daily, hitting targets with a precision that astonished even the old sheriff, a man who had seen more gunfights than most in the county. Jack's mind was clear, his movements calculated, and his presence commanding. People began to step aside when he walked down the streets, and even the toughest cowboys and outlaws regarded him with a mix of fear and awe. Yet, even as he became stronger, Jack felt a pull of unease. The tonic had given him incredible power, but he could not shake the feeling that it had changed more than just his body. He sometimes woke in the middle of the night with a sense of being watched, with his senses alert to dangers he could not see. Evelyn's warning echoed in his mind. Power came with choices, and choices could shape the man he was becoming. One morning, as he cleaned his revolvers by the edge of the town, Jack heard a familiar voice calling his name. It was Dusty's neigh, frantic, signaling that trouble was near. Jack's hand went to his gun instinctively. The outlaws from the canyon had returned, seeking revenge, thinking the wounded cowboy would be an easy target. But Jack was no longer the man they had left behind. His movements were swift and precise. He drew his revolver faster than they could even raise theirs. The standoff was brief but intense. Jack's enhanced reflexes allowed him to disarm the attackers without serious injury to himself. They fled, whispering fears of the untouchable cowboy. Jack stood in the dusty street, chest heaving, aware of the power that surged through him and the responsibility that came with it. He looked toward the horizon, toward the road that would take him deeper into his legend. Evelyn appeared beside him, calm but watchful. "Remember," she said softly, "this is only the beginning. The world will test you and your choices will matter more than your power." Jack nodded, understanding her words more clearly now. The tonic had saved him, had made him stronger than he had ever been, but it had also opened a path he could not yet see the end of. Jack Red Lawson had survived death. He had drunk the mysterious tonic, and he had returned to Silver Creek transformed. The whispers, the fear, the respect, it was all new, and it was all his to face. With Dusty at his side and Evelyn's words in his heart, he prepared for the journey ahead, knowing that the life he once knew had ended, and a new, dangerous chapter was just beginning. The sun rose slowly over Silver Creek, casting long shadows across the dusty streets. Jack Red Lawson stood outside the saloon, his hat tipped low, eyes scanning every corner. The town was quiet, almost too quiet, as if it held its breath waiting. Jack had recovered, grown stronger, and the mysterious tonic had awakened abilities he never knew he possessed. But with his strength came attention, some friendly, most wary. He knew that sooner or later someone would challenge him. Word of his return had spread faster than the wind. Outlaws who once ignored him now whispered his name with fear. Farmers and merchants peered from behind shutters, unsure whether to welcome him or flee. Jack felt the weight of it all, a mix of pride and unease. He had survived death, grown stronger than anyone imagined, but he knew reputation alone could not protect him from the dangers ahead. One morning, a rider appeared on the horizon, galloping toward town with urgency. Jack noticed him first before the townsfolk had even fully seen the approaching figure. The man dismounted in front of the saloon, sweat glistening on his brow, and tipped his hat nervously. "Jack Lawson?" the rider asked. His voice trembled slightly. "It's the McAllister gang. They've returned, and they're gathering outside the town. They've heard you're back, and they want revenge." Jack's eyes narrowed. The McAllisters had been among the men who had ambushed him in the canyon. They were ruthless, confident, and used to getting their way. But Jack was no longer the wounded cowboy they had left behind. He felt a calm focus settle over him, a strange clarity that the tonic had sharpened. He nodded, silently acknowledging the threat. He mounted Dusty and rode toward the outskirts of town where the gang had gathered. The men were surprised to see him approach so confidently. Their leader, A burly man with a scar across his cheek laughed mockingly. "You're still alive. I thought we left you for dead." Jack stopped a few feet away, his hand resting lightly on his revolver. "I'm alive," he said steadily. "And I'm done running." The tension was thick. Dust rose from the ground as the wind swept through the canyon, carrying the distant sound of rattling spurs and nervous whispers. Then, without warning, the leader drew his gun. Jack's reflexes, sharpened beyond normal limits, reacted instantly. His hand shot out, revolver pointed, and the first shot rang out. The bullet struck the ground just in front of the leader's boots, a warning. The duel that followed was fast and precise. Jack moved with an almost supernatural awareness, anticipating every move, dodging each attack while remaining calm and calculated. One by one, the outlaws realized they were no match for him. Some fled while others surrendered, unable to face the man who seemed untouchable. By the time the dust settled, Jack stood alone, victorious, his gun still smoking, heart steady. The townsfolk emerged cautiously from their hiding places, whispering among themselves. "He's more than a man now," one said softly. "He's like a force of nature." Jack didn't celebrate. He holstered his revolver, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and unease. He had proven his skill, but he also understood the power the Tonic had given him came with responsibility and danger. Days passed, and Jack's legend grew. Travelers spoke of the cowboy who had returned from death, stronger and faster than any man alive. Some called him a miracle. Others whispered that he had been touched by something unnatural. Jack paid little attention to the rumors. His focus was on survival, on protecting the town, and on keeping his abilities under control. Evelyn Shaw visited him often, always watching carefully. She reminded him of the balance he needed to maintain. "Power is a gift, but also a burden," she told him one evening as they walked along the edge of the canyon. "The world will test you, and the choices you make will define who you truly are." Jack listened, understanding her words more clearly now. The Tonic had made him formidable, but it had also made him aware of the thin line between strength and recklessness. One afternoon, a new threat arrived. A gang known for their brutality, the Blackridge brothers, had heard of Jack's victories and came to challenge him. They rode into Silver Creek with arrogance, expecting to dominate the town as they had done before. The town held its breath, unsure whether to flee or watch. Jack met them in the center of town. His presence alone caused hesitation among the gang. He did not raise his voice, nor did he act aggressively. He simply stood tall, calm, and unyielding. The leader of the gang sneered. "We've come to take what's ours. Step aside, cowboy, or face us." Jack's eyes narrowed. "I don't step aside," he said quietly. "And I don't make threats I can't keep." The duel began with a roar of gunfire, but Jack moved with unmatched precision. Each shot was deliberate, each movement calculated. He disarmed the gang one by one, his instincts and reflexes heightened to the point where no ordinary man could match him. Within moments, the Blackridge brothers realized they were defeated. They fled, leaving behind a town that now regarded Jack with awe and respect. Even as victories piled up, Jack began to feel the cost of his power. The Tonic had given him extraordinary abilities, but it had also changed him in ways he could not fully understand. He often spent nights awake, thinking about the lives he had influenced, the fear he had inspired, and the path he was on. Evelyn's warnings echoed in his mind, reminding him that true strength was measured not just by skill, but by wisdom. Despite the burden, Jack's determination never wavered. He knew the West was full of danger, and that his journey was far from over. Outlaws would continue to rise, challenges would come, and he would need to rely on both his abilities and his judgment to survive. The townsfolk, once afraid, now looked to him for protection and guidance. Jack embraced this role, understanding that leadership was more than power. It was responsibility, courage, and honor. Months passed, and Jack's reputation spread across the West. Stories of the cowboy who had returned from the brink of death, stronger and faster than any man alive, reached distant towns and settlements. Travelers spoke of his calm confidence, his unmatched skill, and the mysterious tonic that had transformed him. Jack did not boast of his victories. He let his actions speak for him, and the tales of his exploits grew with each retelling. Evelyn eventually left Silver Creek, continuing her travels as a healer. Before she departed, she left Jack with a small vial of tonic and a simple message. "Use this wisely. Remember, strength is a tool, not a weapon of pride. Jack accepted it quietly, understanding that the tonic was both a gift and a reminder. He had survived, grown stronger, and become a legend. But he knew that true greatness required balance, wisdom, and the courage to face challenges without losing himself. Jack Red Lawson walked through Silver Creek one last time before riding out to new horizons. Dusty carried him steadily, the wind blowing through his hair, the sun warming his back. The town watched silently, knowing they had witnessed the rise of a man who had faced death, embraced extraordinary power, and emerged as the Wild West's most dangerous and respected gunfighter. As Jack disappeared into the open plains, he carried with him more than skill and strength. He carried experience, wisdom, and a sense of responsibility that made him more than just a legend. He had been wounded, healed, transformed, and tempered by the tonic. But he had also been shaped by the choices he had made. Jack rode onward, aware that the West was full of challenges, but confident that he could face them one duel at a time with honor, courage, and unmatched skill. The story of Jack Red Lawson, the cowboy who had been told to drink the mysterious tonic and returned stronger than ever, became a tale told across the West for generations. People spoke of him with awe, respect, and a touch of fear, knowing that some legends are born not just from skill but from survival, transformation, and the choices a man makes when given power. Jack's journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. He had claimed his place in the history of the Wild West, a place where danger, courage, and legend intertwined forever.